Hey everyone, welcome back to another POV commentary video of my MX Simulator races. This is the first round of the MXSCC series, which is an enduro cross-country series hosted by Mozart and the track is made by Mattias Lidman. What you're seeing now is my qualifying lap for this race, which was a shortened loop of the main track. Format is a little bit different than a regular motocross format. This race, they take the top 60 qualifying lap times from the qualifying track, which is what you're seeing right now, and then they'll put us on the main track for a 70-minute plus 1 lap race. As you can see here, my lap time was a 1 minute 54 second lap time, which technically puts me in second, as Mozart had a random lap time and Braden Carter did not show up to race. So I was about 2.5 seconds off first place, which is Josh Collins' lap time. And yeah, what you see here is a sand track. I wasn't too sure how I do with this style of racing because it's just all-out, fast, wide-open racing on a sand berms, and it's just really rough and coarse, and it gets everywhere, you know. So I decided to ride a 450 for this. I was riding my Supercross setup. I was just going full hard suspension to just get that extra speed out of the bike, and hopefully it doesn't bog down from my suspension. This qualifying track was pretty fun. It was a little bit of the main loop, and it was reversed kind of towards the end of the lap what would be the main loop. We didn't know this at the time because the main track didn't release until 1 hour before we actually had to race it. So we're going about last few corners here on this track. I was making some bobbles and I was like, oh, right there I just lost this lap time, and it felt like I had a pretty good lap going there, but I thought I ended up getting a cut here, but I didn't. So last couple corners, there's this long straightaway here, and as I said, getting a 1 minute 56 second lap time, which puts me second place. You really want a good gate pick for this, as you don't want to get caught behind the rest of the riders. So yeah, that was the lap time there. We'll move over to the main race. Alright, so we're in the gate here with a 70-minute plus 1 lap race. I had second gate pick, and I decided, you know what, I'll pick all the way on the outside gate because it's a little bit smoother, as there was a whole bunch of holes on the inside of this start straight. So I didn't get a good jump, but that's okay. I thought maybe I can get the drive by going way out here, and I ended up getting the top 10 start here. So I'm like, alright, let's go. Let's just hope nothing happens. See a guy flipping, and number 10 gets a little bump and runs into me. And this is where I was like, ah, great. This is gonna be a fun race now. I now get up and around, let's see, it's still updating, losing more positions. More guys falling down, so I'm trying to bob and weave, and it looks like I'm about P33. Out of like 52 people, I think, showed up to race this. So, yeah, not a good start. I've done an enduro race before and started in the back, and you just don't want that to happen. There's so many people that you have to avoid, even riders that are slower than you. You just can't follow their lines, but it's really hard to do whenever there's just so many guys. So just in those couple corners right there, I made up to P19 now. So I thought, well, it's a 70-minute long race, not a good start. Let's just see what we can do and pick off as many spots as we can. It's a 7-minute race, so we have all the time in the world. Just don't override it and crash a whole bunch, or else it's just playing catch up the whole race. So I had not many expectations where to finish. I wanted to be inside the top 5 for this race because I just love enduro races. It's just one of those disciplines in racing where it's just different than your regular motocross, supercross formats. I like consider myself that I'm a more technical rider. I like the longer race formats, as I feel like the longer I ride, the better I get. I'm not a hop on the track and sprint type of guy. We're up inside the top 10 already, and it's only been a quarter of a lap, so we played it smart, had smart lines, let other people make their mistakes, and just get around them. A little bit of luck too, not getting collected with anybody. I guarantee you it'd be a completely different race at this point if I ended up colliding with another guy and going down a couple corners ago. But we're already inside the top 10. So this track, I kind of got a little bit more time on it. I like to grind my enduro stuff, especially the qualifying track. I'm not gonna lie, I grinded it pretty hard. It's just one of these things that you don't really have many enduro races often, so I can literally sit here all day and play it. It's just really fun to me. Um, so I just get around that guy. I decided to go outside, but he ended up going outside, so he got me back. I had a little bopple going into there. I just decide, it's still early in the race. I can just follow guys. If the pass happen, or if there's an opportunity to make a pass happen, then we can do it. So right there with the number 8 on the two-stroke, I thought maybe I could go around the outside on him on the last corner, but we both made bobbles, and I just ended up letting him have it and just racing smart, just not forcing the issue. So I ended up getting around him. I just had cleaner lines. Oh, just barely avoid this guy. And after the sand track, we go into this weird little single track part of the track where it's kind of grassy. I don't know what it was. I just could not get the hang of this, and this guy goes down, so I made up another spot. So already went from P33 to P7 in half a lap. That's just boosted my confidence. I thought with that crash, I was just going to have a horrible race and get collected with all the guys in the back. But looks like we made the good line choices and played it smart, not making aggressive passes early on, and we're already inside the top 10. But yeah, I was saying about this section, the grassy single track section, I just could not get a flow through here. I was thinking it's my advanced stability. I kind of ride a stiffer advanced stability setup, and I just don't think it worked well for these really tight and bouncing back and forth, kind of like in a half pipe. I just felt like I was losing a lot of time and just couldn't get a good flow through here. And as you can see, P6 goes and explodes. It kind of distracts me, and I mess up the entrance to this part, which is another single track part of the sand. Once again, just didn't feel fast in this, and I think this is where most of my speed was lost here, but I'm going to say it a million times. It's an enduro race, it's 70 minutes. I don't think it's that detrimental to lose speed in some parts of the track, but you can gain up a lot of time on the other parts of the track. So now we're entering the part of the qualifying track. If you remember, on the qualifying race, we raced this on the other direction, so I was just kind of trying to hit my lines here. What I was doing my qualifying lap, just reverse, but I don't think it worked out. I ended up later in the race just mostly picking the insides, and it seemed to work better. So coming up to this section was kind of the most enduro cross-ish section. A big old cavern right there, and then you just gap up onto this table. I kept going outside here because I kind of wanted a nice clean run to these log doubles, and in qualifying, on the qualifying track going the other direction, I kind of practiced these as well on our little hour that we had to practice the main loop. I was practicing those just so I wouldn't mess them up, but once you start thinking about it, I'm like, oh, you can't mess it up even though, you were doing pretty good in practice. You just don't hit it right when you're thinking about it, so it's just one of those things. I just kept goofing up throughout this race, and as I was battling here with number 0, this section right here is weird. You can double up over the pond, but when I was practicing it in our 1 hour practice, I was getting it just fine. So I thought, you know what, I'm feeling confident, I can hit it. Let me just go for it, and of course I just barely come up short and get the legs off as I got into the top 5. So after doing that, I just told myself, alright, it's an enduro race, we don't need to try that line. If we give up a second or two, it doesn't matter. So now I'm in 7th. We were up inside the top 5 before the lap, before ending the first lap, and I was feeling pretty good, and my morale was really high at this point. I'm like, I think I can win this, depending on where. I think Josh Collins was the biggest competitor as he um, qualified. He was the only other guy to qualify higher than me. Um, so I was kind of wondering where he was, if he was out front and just taking off. As we go almost across the finish line, I'm just goofing it up even more, so I lost more spots, and now I'm in ninth. So I crossed the finish line in P9, so I made up about 20 positions, a little over 20 positions in the first lap, so I was feeling really good. And then those two guys crash and collide on the start straight here. I don't really like high speed, just wide open sections like this. They're really scary because you can get high sided pretty good and just lose all your speed. And that's a part of the track where you just lose so much time. So yeah, now as you can see, I made a little jump cut. So now after viewing that first lap, I'm just gonna make a whole bunch of cuts. So this isn't the whole 70-minute race. So we're back up at P7, and P6 was down there in the corner, and I clipped him, but ended up getting around him here. But he got me back. This little corner was a little bit of a bottleneck. I felt bad. I accidentally dove in too hard. I had no business doing that. So I go outside knowing that he was inside here, and I don't get a good run into it. I had a bobble coming into it, and then you can double these walls here, and that's the faster line, but I just really goofed up that section, so I gave up another spot, and I believe that was Josh Collins, not number 0, but the guy in front of him. So I'm like, alright, we're practically the fastest two on the track, let's see if we can work together and just move up front. This little jump was interesting. You could triple over it from the inside, but you had to get a decent run and a good pop off of it. I wasn't getting it comfortably, but I wasn't scared coming short on it because I believe it wouldn't really be that bad if you come up short. So I decided to go wide out here. Cheated a little bit when went around the bumps just slightly for the better run, but I believe it was still in the track, so it was okay. It looks like Josh goes off the track, so we get around him and decided to follow number 0, but I ended up getting a little too carried away and jumped the front end. So jump cutting over here, decided to go outside, do a little double over that, but I clipped my back wheel and completely wadded my brains out. So now we're entering in the single track. Once again, just don't feel comfortable going through this section. Mostly the corners, not really the bumps. I just kept slamming into it and just losing my momentum. I was practically going to a stop in those corners where I felt like I was just losing so much time. And then blowing that inside every time at the first couple laps. So once again, I'm sitting in 8th place, not too far behind. I was looking up on the map. I don't know how well you can see the map, but that tiny green dot's the leader. I was trying mostly not to look at how far behind I was from the guys in front of me on my pit board, and I wasn't looking on the map to see where the leader was. I just knew that it's just going to come down to whoever makes least amount of mistakes. The track's just long enough where you're bound to have a mistake every lap. There's no way anybody can perfectly run laps, unless you're probably the very fast boys in the RF scene, but there wasn't that many Americans racing this that I usually race in the RF scene. All these guys are usually the enduro enthusiasts, so most of the Swedish guys like Mozart, Mattias Lidman, I believe Jacob Holgersson, those guys are really fast in the enduro scene. But we didn't have too many of the top RF guys like Leclerc and wasn't there, or Payson Johnson. I believe I've seen Nathan Prin race a couple enduro races, but he wasn't there, so I felt like I had a pretty good shot of doing well in this race. There wasn't that many top guys, and Braden Carter was like the only like S tier rider that qualified, but he didn't show up in race, so I thought, I think I can do this. I've never raced Josh Collins before, as he was technically P1 in qualifying, so I didn't know how good he would be, but that little battle that we had there gave a pretty good indication of how fast he was. He was pretty on par with the same pace as me, probably faster, just making clean line suities. So through those big old, I don't know what you call them, spines, make up a couple spots so we get up to P6. So this time around I was going through the pool, I'm like, I'm not doing this double, I'm not going to do it. So then we get up on this big mound and you can just kind of scrub off and just land there. I just found that drop off really fun. And then this last section of the track here, these last couple corners, is a big old double in front of the fans, and you can go wide and then double over these logs. And I just think, just the way it flowed, I just thought it was a lot of fun. I wish there was more enduro cross tracks. I really enjoy enduro cross, even though the physics are a little wonky for MX Simulator. So right there, two guys were piled up on the inside, and I ended up getting up to 4th. So we're already on lap 3, and I'm up to 4th, and I'm just feeling really good. I just trying my hardest not to have a bad lap. So it was really hard to get a flow on this track. There's just so many holes and bumps in these corners, and you're just basically doubling through them. It's just in my opinion, how I felt like this track is just a massive supercross track, just doubling through everything and jumping over as many holes as you can. So right here, I got a little too fast, and I was pinning it a little bit too hard, and I ended up going over the corner here. So I ended up losing a spot, but that's okay. It's an enduro race. If you can see the timer in the top left of the corner, we're only 18 minutes into it, so we still got a long ways to go. So there's somebody dying there in this single track part. I just think this was the most scary part of the track, because if you wanted to, you could just fifth pin it and just straight shot everything on the straightaways on that part, and it was just very scary, and I just found myself just backing down. Felt like I was a little bit better in the sand single track, as it was a little more rougher, not very too many corners. There were more like berms than they were like these half pipes in the grass part. So I'm battling here for 4th place. I was going outside here at the start of the race because this was the line I was doing in the qualifying track, and I just felt like it was better. But I ended up later, on the later laps, just going inside outside. I think this part was probably the most unique part of the track. It was just a really fun, flowy section. You just jump into the hole and just float back out, and as I just completely butcher this section, I'm scarily, sketchily going through these log jumps and end up getting sideways at the last one and dying. So we're bobbling around, just making up time. All the other people are crashing and making a little more mistakes than I were, so I'm catching up to P3 here as we go over the big double. He goes inside. I'm like, all right, well, I'll just go outside and just double over this right past you, because it was just smoother and faster. So I end up crossing the line, the 3rd lap, going onto the 4th lap into P3, and I'm feeling great. I'm just like, I can totally catch up and possibly battle for the lead. I wasn't looking at for the green dot, but they're just at the end of this straightaway now. I'm about 17 seconds in front of me. So I think my gearing was just a little too short here. I could hear the guy behind me catching me at the end of that straightaway, and I kept going outside there. I just felt like it was easier to carry your momentum with less bumps. And So skipping ahead a few corners, and I noticed that I looked down my pit board and I saw that I was only 4 seconds behind second. So I realized that the front two, or at least second, were making more mistakes, and I just knew if I could stay off the ground and not have too many bobbles, I can possibly win this. And if you saw in the last corner there was a guy down, and that ended up being second place. So then I looked down, I'm like, oh, I'm in second place. It's fourth lap. We still got a long ways to go, but I can reel down this leader. I can possibly win this race, and that would be so stoked for me. I just love enduro races. It's the only race where I think I could possibly win. I don't think I'm good enough to ever win like an RF Supercross or any of the other big series out there with the really fast boys, but it's just this one discipline. I'm happy that we get these tracks sometimes and can race it. So yeah, here's a perfect example why I suck in this grass section. I just completely bumped out of the corner, couldn't turn, and ran into the hay bale, and I got back to third place, which isn't a big deal. So right there, second place goes down in the single track, and I believe that was, yeah, first place is right there. He was just getting up from a crash, and he's only 2.9 seconds ahead. So this is when my morale really shot up, and I just knew that I could be in the contention for winning this race. So I get a little bit out of shape. I kept going outside, and that was just a better line. But in that time, I got out of shape and ended up going inside and hitting all the bumps and losing a little bit of time. So here we are going through the enduro cross section. Decided to go outside again, see if I can get these, and nope, I didn't give enough throttle, and I had to practically roll through the rest of these. So these spines were a little tricky because there's massive ruts going into them, and you don't really want to downside the ones that have ruts on them, so because you could just really endo them. So I ended up just trying to land on top of them and just kind of wheelie off of them. And that last one had a little bit of a dip at the end. It was very easy to endo. When I was practicing, I kept doing that, so I ended up just doing my strat of landing on top of the spine. So this lap, I ended up going inside because I kind of landed on the inside, prepped for that, and now you're just like, you know what, I'll just double over with the log, and ended up just shooting me to the sky and looping myself out. So I ended up crossing the finish line, going on to lap 5, and ran another decent lap time, 6:56.9. Which was, I believe, my fastest lap time before practice. So I'm losing a little bit of time to the leader. Going on to that lap, I was 12 seconds behind, and now he just got up from a crash, so I'm only 2.5 seconds behind the leader, and he's in sight again. Coming into this section, I always went outside here. It just felt like a really good run. You could just get up through the gears and then hit this inside and triple over. So at this point in the race, I'm thinking, whoever's out in front, which I believe was Josh Collins at this point, I can just try to keep up with his pace. I didn't believe I needed to go all out and try to race him on speed. I just knew that he was being a little bit inconsistent at this point in the race, so I think I could hang with him and just possibly benefit from his mistakes versus me just outright trying to go as fast as I can. Because as you can see, if you're looking down on the pit board, I'm fluctuating between like 3 seconds behind him and then 5, and then I'm just a little bit slower in some sections, and he just go faster than me. So going into that single track there, as you can see, I was only 5 seconds going into that, and without any major mistakes like tipping over or crashing, going into that grass section, I ended up being 11 seconds out of him. So that just kind of shows you how slow I was through that grass section. I just was not gelling with it at all, and I was losing so much time through there, and that was pretty much the only demoralizing part at this point. Jumping over that floater there, and I see the lapper, and I almost landed on him, scared me. And I think this was probably the best time I got through those enduro cross logs. And coming through the spine, you can see how sketchy it was. So ended up making a little bit more time back on to Josh. Going across the finish line here, a couple lappers, only about 12 seconds down from the leader. So I just ran my best lap time again, so we're making progress on this track. 36 minutes in, and every single lap we're making our PB. So I go past this lapper. I was a little scared from the lapper. I didn't want him to cut across on the straight and take us both out, so I wasn't really paying attention, and I ended up not looking where I was going, and I ended up going around the hay bale there, so I had to slam on my brakes just to make sure I didn't hit it. And I thought about going back inside so I wouldn't miss the timing gate, and I thought, I'll just take the cuts and hope that it wasn't that much of a penalty. Josh must have went down at this point. I ended up looking down at the pit board and was only 4 seconds behind versus the 12 going into this lap. So it's literally just at this point in the race who makes the least amount of mistakes. I knew that he was faster than me overall. I felt like I could kind of keep his pace on these on the sand part of the track, at least like the first half of the track. But whenever you hit the single track, I was just losing so much time to him. So at this point in the race, we're hitting the lappers. For the most part, lappers were totally chill in this race. I think they realized, there's no way that I can really gain much time. We can just move over for the leaders, and it'll be okay for their race. So thank you to the lappers. So right now I finally decided to go inside on that corner so I can triple into here, and I see 2 guys down, one guy re-entering the track right in front of me, which I believe was a lapper. Yeah, so Josh Collins went down, and at this point I'm like, oh my god, I'm in the lead, I can't believe this is happening. Let's just not make mistakes, and we can battle each other. Hopefully he'd be chill and not try to go for cleanouts, but I think he knows it's an enduro race as well. It's just whoever rides the cleanest throughout the whole race. So now we're going into my worst section, and this is kind of proof why I suck here. So I end up going a little too wide and end up clipping the track boundary, and he just goes flying past me. And at this point, I thought, all right, let's just try to see what he does. We can kind of mimic what he does through here, so we can improve in this section. And then at this point in the race, this is when I started realizing, like, oh wait, is there E-road on the track? Because that rut was getting bigger. I didn't know that they were going to run E-road on this track, because there's so many guys on the track. The track's a little bit longer. I felt like it had just been a performance issue, but I ran full frames the whole race. So yeah, E-road started to kick in, and I don't think it really benefited me. And yeah, as you can see here, I'm just losing so much time to Josh here. I was just right behind him, and now coming out here and I'm clipping the hay bale. I'm coming out of the section 5 seconds behind. So hopefully for the next race I can improve on my single track riding. I believe I have fixed this. I've been playing around on the next track for the next race, which is going to be the Gotland Grand National, and a lot of that track is single track, and I've been messing with my stability settings to kind of benefit single track riding. So at this point, I was starting to make my mistakes. As you can see, I blew the corner before the log jumps, and then I absolutely end out going over the log. So that's whenever I was like, okay, we can't be making these mistakes, because I just lost 24 seconds now. Which isn't the end of the world. We're going across the line, going on to lap 7, and 43 minutes of the into the race, and we still got 30 minutes left. So I thought, all right, those mistakes are out of our system. We can just move forward. There's still plenty of race. So another sketchy moment. There's a lapper down in a blind hole right there. Somehow missed him. Scared me. And we're making more mistakes. But bobbles like that aren't too bad. It's just the full legs off crashes that we don't want. I believe this lap is the lap where I start to not do so well. I was clipping those hay bales there and just bobbling in the corner a little bit too much right there as well. And now we're 40 seconds behind. I believe that crash from the hay bale back there, that was the big time loss, and then obviously going through the single track, that was the biggest time loss. So now we're 40 seconds behind. So in one lap, we went from leading to 40 seconds behind, and now this is where it's like, okay, well, now let's see what happens. We need to just make time. And there we go, me just crashing again. So now we're 49 seconds behind, and then this is what I mean about these spines. You don't want to jump over them, you want to land on top just for the safety of it, and I end up just clipping it. So, before the end of the lap now, we're 57 seconds, and now we're almost a whole minute behind. So, this is where we're just thinking, like, what do we need to do to fix this? Obviously, we're not faster than Josh. We need him to make mistakes, and we just need to stop making mistakes. So, ended up crashing another time. We clipped the hay bale before that corner. And yeah, now we're 70 seconds behind. So yeah, I remember this lap was just the, oh boy, we kind of blew it lap, but we're still in second place. So at this point, I was thinking, oh, shouldn't guys be coming up on me? Because I lost a whole minute that lap. Where are the other riders? So that kind of, although I lost confidence for the lead, I kind of gained confidence knowing that, oh hey, that just means I'm the second best, because third wasn't anywhere near me. Sometimes when I crashed, I'd check back to see where third was, and I was checking back and they were like 40 seconds behind me. So I was thinking, alright, well, I didn't think I would be this good, as I'm not too good about the whole like wide open racing highway tracks like this was. So this kind of boosted my confidence. I know it's not like the fastest guys out there, but the guys that were finishing behind me were the Swedish guys who love enduro races. So I expected them to be right up here with us, but they were a little bit behind in this race. So coming up here on this sand single track section, I was stuck behind a couple lappers, and I'm sitting here revving my bike. I'm like, hey, can you get out of the way? I know they wouldn't, because it's like, I know they're racing for a position, and they don't want to get out of the big rut. But one guy falls out of the rut, so there's one, but that guy ended up tipping over, but didn't end up costing me too much time. so it's all okay. I know there's not much they can really do about it, but they weren't like racing me hard. I'm sure they probably would have pulled over after the single track, but it is what it is. So we got lucky missing these two guys. They cross-jumped each other and ended up going right past them. So this lap I decided, you know what, I'm not doing so well going outside. Let me just try the inside. And sure enough, I cased the first one. And I ended up just rolling the next couple and just doubling out. I'm like, alright, well, we're not doing so hot there, but Josh is kind of out on his own now. He's 73 seconds behind, and all we can hope for is just him to make mistakes and us just not make mistakes. So here we go, we crossed the line, and that ended up being our best lap time of the race, a 6-minute 46-second lap time. Not a bad lap, but could be faster. I am losing about 10 seconds at least in the single track, so I think if I just ran a little bit of a cleaner lap and ended up getting that single track section down, I think I could have dropped my lap time below the 6-minute and 30s, but we didn't. This was our best lap of the race, and I believe Josh ran like a 6-minute 33-second lap time, which is killer fast. I think I ran the second or third fastest lap time, and I believe there was somebody else. Can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Mozart. I think he ran a 6:43. So yeah, we're about an hour into this race. If you can see up in the clock, we're 62 minutes into it, and we're just making micro mistakes and crashing this lap. Nothing too exciting was really happening at this point of the race, or at the kind of towards the end here. Lapper trying to get up the wall there, I think kind of distracted me, and I just ended up getting the bobble, and not the cleanest, but it is what it is. So I'm revving my bike at the lapper. I'm like, hey man, can you kind of move? But he wasn't like too much in the way. Probably get him here. Nope, ended up just clipping behind him. That's okay. So yeah, right there, with a full legs off crash, I ran a 6-minute 50-second lap time. So I know I can run a faster lap, it's just at this point I was just making too many micro mistakes and getting that legs off. So this guy's on a 250, I'm on a 450. I'm like, oh god, gotta get around him. Then we're kind of bumping with the E-Road. These holes were getting bigger, and they're kind of sketchy. Coming into this corner was fun too. There's a little bit of a pre-rut going into it, and it was just fun to rail. At this point in the race, I noticed that I was 80 seconds behind. There's only, time-wise, only about 5 minutes left in the race, plus the one lap. I believe Josh ended up crossing the line before the timer ran out, so we ended up having 2 more laps to go. But at this point, I knew I wasn't going to catch up on him because he's running just that much more consistent. So yeah, 90 seconds down now, I knew at this point there's no way I'm catching him unless he has an absolute meltdown of a lap and we end up gaining that time, but spoiler alert, we don't, so we end up finishing second in the race anyway. The guys behind us were just not on the same level as we were. So yeah, as you can see here in this lap, I ended up going inside to outside there. Just switching up the lines and what kind of everybody else was hitting. There's kind of a nice rut forming to where you can hit those corners just a little bit smoother. I just crossed the line for lap 11 here, so this is not the last lap because Josh is just so far ahead at this point. He ended up crossing the line before we hit that one lap card. So a lapper died down there on the straightaway, and I ended up going around the hay bale again, just to avoid the guy. I ended up taking the cuts. This little rut here was kind of fun. Kind of go around the bumps and just dive into there. That was probably the only section where I felt decent in the single track. I remember this part. I was getting a little frustrated with these lappers, even though it wasn't really a big deal. There wasn't anybody close behind me to catch up, but I ended up clipping that lapper. And then I see him go down, and it kind of threw me off guard, and I landed on top of the roller up there and just ended up high-siding. I remember this bit too. I was going through the pool and a lapper was just trying out the double line there and just went flying up and around me. I could hear his bike going over the jump, and I was like, oh, please don't land on me. But he ended up just flying off the track. So yeah, we're going up here on the last lap. Nothing too exciting really happens, just me running a lap, making mistakes here and there, but overall just not gaining much time on Josh. He rode a really good race. I went back and kind of looked at his stream. He was streaming this race on Twitch, and I just went to watch his start, and he was one of the guys that got exploded on the start straight, and he actually came back from way back of the pack as well. So for him to come back that far back and win the race by over 70 seconds, that's just really impressive. So yeah, I really, really, really love enduro races. It's just so much fun to me. I know it's not that popular in MX Simulator. There's a little bit of scene on MX bikes, but it's just really fun to do. Just switch it up, do more challenging technical riding versus your typical motocross and supercross stuff. It's just a really fresh and different. Going into the second race, which I believe I said before was the Gotland Grand National. I'll be second in the points for that. Maybe able to beat Josh in that race and gain the points lead and just battle for the championship. As the time I'm recording this, the Gotland Grand National qualifying track is already out, and so far I'm kind of off the pace, and the qualifying track is very long. It's a 15-minute track. So whenever I throw up the POV of that one, I'll probably split those up into two videos: the qualifying track and then the 70-minute race. Finishing up this lap, I'm totally just butchering it. I'm like, alright, I just need to roll these logs here and come across the line without crashing, and maybe make up some time on cuts. It doesn't happen. There's no way anybody's gonna have that many cuts. And of course, last lap I end up sliding the front end after the landing there. So yeah, Josh finished the race already. Just needed to finish up and get ready for the next one. So the last 3-ish corners, going for the double for the last time, and shame on me I didn't throw a big whip. I was just kind of tired at this point and just wanted to finish, and end up crossing the line second. So yeah, thank you for watching this one. I'll see you in the next Supercross POV for the MPH series, and I'll eventually throw up the Gotland race when I can. Thank you for watching.